Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Friday. It is March the 6th. We just found out that the Marvel action universe, whatever the hell it's called, it's apparently real. We got demotions and a MAGA mix-up, a MAGA makeover, if you will, since there's a lady who is now taking on a new job that seems to spend an awful lot of time on her makeup. So we're going to be doing a discussion about that. And in the MAGA makeup mix-up, we've also got the senator from Oklahoma, Markwayne Mullin, who is famous in my world for giving me the inspiration for the Congressional Thunderdome when he wanted to fight a union boss. He's been around Congress for about 13 years between his time in the Senate and before. And yeah, he was a guy that wanted to throw hands on the floor. I think that would have been cool. Unfortunately, he's now going to be in charge of the Department of Homeland Security. And I don't know where that goes, but I do know at least he's not poor. At least he makes really good stock trades. So we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about the FBI has decided they're going to let good cops be cops, including people who are not cops be cops. That can't go wrong. We just fired a bunch of people who were acting like cops and taking a knee for BLM. So I can't see that going wrong at all. In other words, things are going swimmingly here in America. Everything is fine. Just lighten up, people. Donald Trump just wants you to just say, hey, knock it off. And let's just enjoy all the illegal aliens that are hanging out in your country, because some of them are hard workers and good people. Maybe they also, like you, want to trans their kids. I'm not feeling like it's going to be a uplifting show, but it is going to be a funny show because I got some fun stuff, including we're going to go back to the 1980s. Come for the knife fights, stay for the mustaches. That's the goal with my friend, Real Steve Friend. So that's a little preview of where we're going to do it, what we're going to do, how we're going to do it. Let's talk about my friends over at Patriot Protect very quickly. The show is brought to you by the folks that are looking to keep your internet safety yours. Keeping track of your internet security is your own job. Keeping track of your own information, that should be something you should be able to take control of. If you guys don't have any control of it, and many of us are doing businesses with companies that take our things, plug them into AI, and then God knows what happens. It's pretty much every major company. It doesn't matter if you're using TurboTax or if you're using Google or Amazon or Microsoft. If you use Meta, which I despise, but I have to use, Apple, banks, insurance companies, take your pick. Hospitals and credit bureaus, retailers, data firms. They're all talking about innovation. They're all talking about data management and doing it faster with AI. The problem is that AI runs on data about people like you. They take your name and your home address and your phone number. They take your job. They have all the names of your family members. They are out there trying to make sense of the madness in it. And then what do? They end up accidentally getting a data breach. And then it ends up on a data broker, a people search website where people can build detailed profiles on you. And then other people with AI can use it to try to scam you. They can try to clone your voice. They can fake text messages that sound like your style of writing. They can reach out and pretend to be coming from a banking system or one of the companies you do business with, trying to get you to click on something called spear phishing. They may specifically target you, and so that mass capability of trying to scam people is actually getting more and more personalized. If you want your name out of the pile, if you want to get away from these people search and data broker websites, the best thing you can do is not be on them. And you can scrub the internet 24/7 with the folks over at Patriot Protect. The website is patriot-protect.com/KYLE. Make sure you're using the code Kyle, KYLE, for 15% at checkout. You're going to save some money on their annual subscriptions. The search and destroy protocol is constantly working to monitor and wipe new exposures so that you don't get scammed. Even my own father could be taking advantage of this. Some of you guys that are on Rumble know that there's constantly people that are pretending to be the creator or the show host that you're interacting with. They're sending phone numbers to you and saying, hey, thanks for being on my comment. Like, wouldn't you like to text with me and share some real private thoughts? And then people are like, oh, yes, I'd like to privately text with Kyle Seraphin. And so then they're texting with some douchebag who's out in India. If you guys don't want that stuff coming at you, the easiest way is to get yourself out of the mix. So anyhow, there's always a possibility of exposure, but you can limit your risk by going with Patriot Protect. That's what we use. We just renewed just a little bit ago. Patriot-protect.com/KYLE. Link in the show description. 15% off on the annual. Let's start getting spicy. It's Friday, so let's have some fun with my friend, Steve Friend. I don't know how else to say it, but the world is dumb. And I didn't realize it. There's this meme that's been going around. I've seen it on Instagram 5 or 6 times now, and it's Frodo, and he looks really upset. It's Frodo from The Lord of the Rings. And he says, I knew the world would be dark, scary, and dangerous. I knew it would be full of evil, but I didn't realize it was also going to be so gay and retarded. And it is, in fact, pretty gay and pretty retarded. Here's my buddy who is not. There it is. There's the music. It's good to have theme music. Steve's been watching a lot of pro wrestling of late. Steve, you've been watching way too much pro wrestling, I think.
Oh man, I have watched so much pro wrestling. My youngest son is into the archives of Netflix to the point.
What does that mean, the archives? What do you mean?
There are WWE archives on Netflix, and my 8-year-old is back into 2012 at this point, and he's pulling these up. And
2012 is the archives.
He gets so amped up that he starts wrestling with pillows, and he just calls out, name me a wrestler, name me a move, and I will simulate that on a concrete floor.
Does he know all the moves now? Does he do them properly?
He knows every move. He knows everybody's theme song. We do a name that tune game where he can name the theme song in one note and call out the wrestler. It's pretty impressive.
Does he know the good ones? Does he know the real wrestlers that really are the foundation from my childhood and maybe your childhood?
He ranks Hulk Hogan and The Undertaker as 1 and 2. So I think Dad's doing a pretty good job.
Okay, yeah. So that's a dad victory, 100%. All right, Steve, I got a bunch of stuff. Where do you want to start? Do you want to start with Epstein files? Should we start with a DOJ thing and then work our way into how bad the DOJ is, and then we'll get to our new Homeland Security Secretary and the Marvel Universe?
What is it called? We can close it up.
What is the Marvel Universe called?
MAGA Marvel Makeover. So let's begin with the ex-girlfriend.
Okay, so let's go to the ex-girlfriend first. So here we are. This is look at this. My Patriot Supply is advertising on ABC. That's kind of fun. Okay, and they're coming up next. There we go. So Epstein files. The DOJ has released previously withheld FBI reports about sexual abuse allegations against Donald Trump. A woman claimed that she was abused in the 1980s between the ages of 13 and 15. They were withheld for obvious reasons. I think the Trump administration was trying to, or at least I think some people were trying to filter Donald Trump information out of the Epstein files release. Is that the impression that you've gotten from sort of what we've seen, even if it's not legitimate allegations coming from weirdos?
Yes, and we know that for a fact because I believe it was the Attorney General of New Mexico came out and said, look, there was a directive from the Southern District of New York U.S. Attorney's Office that I cease my investigation into Epstein and hand over everything to them, and I did that, and that is not in the dump. So we know for a fact that they're not turning over everything.
The one thing that bothers me too, and allegations about Donald Trump have been out there. I still had the same opinion that I did previously, and this is just educated speculation kind of thing. But I think if they had the goods on Donald Trump previously, they would have done something with it, because there's so much, TDS. There's so much impetus to get Donald Trump and point out what he's the bad guy that they like to believe he is, that they would have done, cut off their nose to spite their face sort of thing. They would have given up some pretty ugly things, including people at the FBI would have been sacrificed to be able to go after Donald Trump. I don't feel like there's a political machine that wouldn't have given that up in the last, 4 or 5 years.
No, the communists, the Trump deranged, are so wholly bought into that there's no price that they are unwilling to pay. I mean, they'll turn over stalwarts within their own ranks. You can have Bill Clinton. We don't care, right?
You can have Bill Clinton now. Yeah, 100%. They're more than willing to give you Bill Clinton. They do not care about that guy even a little bit. And interesting, Bill Clinton doesn't seem like he's in any danger, because when he's out there doing his thing, he just... he looks like death, by the way. He looks so old right now. And I didn't really, you don't ever see people age if they get out of the public spotlight. And then when they jump in 10 years after the fact, where we haven't really seen a lot of Bill Clinton in front of a camera, it's kind of jarring to see how much he's aged. And meanwhile, Hillary looks like she's still held together with all the normal amount of duct tape. And I can't say the other things that might be holding her together.
Rage is a heck of a drug.
It's she looks more competent than when she was running for president. She looks like more angry and put together.
Remember that whole thing, where she was fainting and
she was falling all over the place,
put into the van, and then we ran a human Roomba 8 years later, and that guy got elected.
And now she's infinitely more confident still, and competent, and as you said, angry and touring around the world. Yeah, the election cycle did not work well for her. So, all right, let me read a couple things about this, and we'll kind of assess what we believe is going on. The Department of Justice on Thursday, that would have been yesterday, released 3 previously withheld FBI interview reports from 2019 related to a woman who made uncorroborated allegations she was abused by Donald Trump in the 1980s. All right, so we're talking about nearly 40-year-old allegations. These are... I'll get your opinion on that. You've taken sexual assault allegations on the Indian reservation, what, hundreds of times? Is that probably accurate?
Yes.
In a statement on social media, the Justice Department said that the interview summaries, known as FBI 302 reports, were initially withheld from the January release in the millions of files of DOJ documents related to Epstein because they were believed to be duplicates of other documents. You want to fact check that real quick? You think that's true?
No.
Okay, I don't think it is either. What we found through the extensive review is that a published 302 additionally disclosed a published spreadsheet had subsequent 302s that were coded as duplicative. This was brought to our attention, and we reviewed the entire batch with similar coding and discovered 15 documents that were incorrectly coded as is that right? Am I saying that word right?
Duplicative. You're thinking of duplicitous because they're probably more duplicitous than duplicative.
They probably are both. Fair enough. Okay, so duplicative. I don't know where the emphasis goes on what
on the correct syllable.
The statement did not appear to explain why, beyond possible human error, the records were marked this way, and as of Thursday evening, the DOJ database does still not include the handwritten notes from the interviews themselves. That's kind of interesting. You know, like the note where you're scribbling down like this woman is crazy?
Yes, where you're specifically told don't write that stuff down because that's all discoverable.
It is discoverable, but like there's times when you're sitting there and someone is writing something and you're hearing it and you're like jotting down all the notes, and then you would have to be like in your brain, the mindset you have is like not credible, underline when they say crazy things.
That's where you come up with your own code system. You just write that down. They ask you like, why did you put 49 down on the paper? I don't know. It was something I can't recall.
Yeah. It was a number. It might have been at one. It might have been a time code of some kind, but 49 stands for your version of it. You've taken a lot of sexual assault allegations. Talk to me about what it means to have a 302, and does that necessarily mean that the allegation is credible?
A 302 is merely a memorialization of an interview. So you're just reporting the facts that are given to you because your job is just to gather the facts, and that would include a witness or a victim's statement to you, which may or may not be true. It's further investigation would substantiate it or rule that maybe that person was erring in their memory, or maybe they're just making it up entirely. Just memorializing it doesn't make it true. That's what the entire point of having an FBI special agent investigate a case would adjudicate.
All right. In this particular story, the allegations are fairly specific and also vague enough to be unlikely to be true. Here we go. In her second interview with federal investigators, she claimed that Epstein once took her to New York or New Jersey, where he introduced her. Where he introduced to Trump. I'm reading this. I'm like, wait, is this my end? No, this is what happens when you don't have any editors at a mainstream publication. All right, so ABC News, you missed some important pronouns there. Okay, introduced her, I believe, to Trump when she was between the ages of 13 and 15 years old. We all remember being 13, 15.
The fog of war. She can't remember.
The fog of war that goes back 35 years ago. That's pretty hard to make that credible allegation. But, I have some memories of being 13 and 15, but they're hazier and hazier every year. So anyhow, that's what that is. They also did a fourth interview. So they did a first, second, third, and fourth. They continue to follow this up. So they did run this down, I would say. And the fact that this was happening in 2019 when Trump was president. A lot of people make weird allegations when people's names are public and in the news. When they disappear, those tend to go away. When they pop back up. Here's what she says. She declined to provide additional allegations about her interaction with Trump when asked by the agents. Her statements to federal agents allege that the incident with Trump took place in the early to mid 80s, a period when Trump and Epstein did not appear to even be in contact, which is probably why this is one of those false allegations. The timeline doesn't align with anything that makes sense. And they didn't even apparently know each other at the time. So there you go. Trump denied wrongdoing, said he was totally exonerated, blah, blah, blah. Did Donald Trump thoughts? Go ahead.
Which this sounds just like Christine Blasey Ford made the accusations against Brett Kavanaugh.
There was a party, but I don't know who threw it. I was invited to it, but I don't know how I got there.
And not for nothing, those accusations weren't federal crimes. I remember.
Don't worry
at the
about
time.
that. Those were important allegations because he was going to be a Supreme Court judge, and when he was in high school drinking beer, that was a problem.
Yes, yeah.
Also,
and
nobody
the
remembers her being at a
was-
party. She wasn't really our friend.
Yeah, we can't recall where it was, when it was. It's just foggy in my memory, and we need to have the FBI investigate it. And that was in 2018. I was in the Bureau, and I remember thinking, like, we're not the magic police. That's not even within our area of responsibility. But what are we going to do? Sprinkle pixie dust and go back and adjudicate whether or not this woman was sexually assaulted 35 years ago?
Why aren't you the magic police, number one? And number two, Steve, are you trying to tell me that you don't believe all women? Because this is actually kind of a bombshell that I don't want you dropping on the show yet. But feel free to address those allegations that you don't believe all women, you jerk.
No, it's not been my experience that you believe all women immediately. You gather the facts. The victory is in following the process. Actually, my first sexual assault allegation that I fielded in the FBI was a false accusation. And it was false because the guy who was accused told me one of the most ridiculous, this can only happen on an Indian reservation story, and that was like trial by fire for me. So this woman alleged that this individual raped her. We sat this guy down, talked to him, and he proceeds to say, well, you know, we were partying all day, so we were drinking, and then we ran out of booze, so we started fighting over who got the last drink. And then we were doing meth, and then we ran out of meth, so we started fighting over the meth.
Hold on. You gotta go slower. We were drinking, we were fighting about who gets the drinks, so then we went to meth.
Yes.
Okay.
Then we ran out of meth, and we had to fight over that.
What happens when you run out of meth? It doesn't go well.
Then you have to start huffing aerosol cans.
Oh,
And they ran out of that and had to fight about that.
good.
And then it was pretty late in the evening, so that's when he was getting romantic with the woman who was his cousin, I will
Listen.
add.
Hold on. So, people, this is the most Indian res story that you've ever heard. And if you've never actually, if you don't know what an Indian reservation is, and they're called Indian reservations,
Yes.
they're not called Native American territories or anything else. It's not being mean. This is like the way the federal code actually
The
defines it.
violation is Indian country crimes.
And when these things happen, the stories that come out of them, they can be like, this is funny because it's horrifically funny and stupid and really bad. It also can end up in like somebody ends up killing a toddler that way. And that you walk into a room and it's just like it's a horror movie. So this is like the funny version of this. You finish this and then I'm going to tell you about the piece of evidence that's sitting in Shelby, Montana, that is also like the perfect Indian reservation story.
So getting in, I'll keep it family friendly. Becoming romantic with your cousin on an Indian reservation is not a rare occurrence.
That's
but
right.
because it was at a house party, when they were in the process of doing that, somebody came in the room before they had started the act and said, "Your cousins, what the heck are you doing?" And he figured, well, they're already going to say we did it, so we might as well. So they proceeded to engage in sexual intercourse. Then afterwards, she attempted to perform oral sex, and he was not down for that because, after all, they're cousins.
They were cousins.
So he pushed her aside and said, "No, we can't do that." And I looked at him and said, that has to 100% be true because there's nobody who would make that story up.
That is a truly horrific statement about what goes on there.
Yeah. No, and it was. I mean, and I was really new,
What
she
state
became
was
a
that
frequent flyer, making allegations all the time.
Right.
But yeah, he was totally forthright with me about those details.
What state was that in?
Nebraska.
Heartland story. There's a truck that hangs out in the Shelby RA, which is outside the Blackfoot Reservation in Shelby, Montana. It's up on the High Line, up on the north side of Montana, central Montana, directly north of Great Falls. Nobody knows where that is unless you know Montana or you happen to drive through there because you're like an oil worker. And Shelby is a pretty rough town. In the RA, the resident agency for the FBI there is an old, I think it's either a little Mazda or like an old T100 pickup truck. It's beat to hell. It's covered in like dust and grass and leaves and blood and broken glass and other stuff like that. It's just a mess. It's an absolute disaster. I don't know if any of the tires are still full. And it's sitting in the middle of the gym, which is also the garage, which is also the ammo locker. And it's also the supply closet. So it's like a steel building that is adjacent to where the main office is, which is also like a temporary building. And I went in there and I was like, what's up with this truck? does that belong to somebody? And they said, no, that's evidence. And I go, oh, what is it evidence in? And they're like, that's kind of a weird story, but it's evidence in a crime that we can't charge anymore and we don't have any way to return it or divest ourselves of it. So it just sits there. Mm-hmm. And the story goes is that there was a guy who was driving it, and he had a passenger, and they were both hammered and driving off-road on the res. And I think the drunken driver hit something. I'm going to get the story a little bit wrong, but the relative details are close. They hit something like a fence post or a tree or a big stump, and the vehicle went flying all over the place. The passenger went through the windshield and died, and the driver was like critically wounded. And so they were charging him for reckless endangerment and whatever the felony sort of vehicular homicide because you were driving drunk and there was a fatality that was related in it. And so all of that goes down. They charge the guy, and then he was killed in some other instance for some other poor decision making. And so the person that they charged, they had seized the evidence, but then they went and they're like, now we have this truck. And then, of course, the guy didn't have any family. So they just have a truck that's a murder evidence or a homicide evidence that they can't return to anybody, and nobody knows how to dispose of it, which is pretty common in the FBI, that they just, the default position is like, we don't know, we'll just hold on to it forever.
Unlimited space. You will be there longer than your career, so don't worry about it. Yeah, I had a similar case where I had misdemeanor homicide because the passenger died and the driver, we couldn't theoretically prove that he was drunk enough or that he was driving quite fast enough, so we wound up charging him, and he went to jail for 364 days. That is a rare misdemeanor homicide in the federal system. Theoretically, he could apply for a job and say, no, I've never been convicted of a felony, but I have killed a man. Yeah, that's all right. So that's really sad. Anyway, so ex-girlfriend, the FBI, interesting animal. This come back into the news because yesterday a pretty interesting story broke from Daniel Rosen, who's over at The Sun, and I'm going to bring that story up here, and I will show you. This is an exclusive. Steve, I can't see this going wrong. As we're dealing with sort of shenanigans on behalf of the Trump administration, the one that you and I like to punch on the most and was not removed yesterday. It's Kash Patel, exclusive. The FBI is turning to new agents from Quantico to patrol the streets of D.C. Ex-agents question the shift towards police work. Let's see. The move comes as S-agents wonder if sending Quantico grads on street patrols is just for political optics or if it actually has anything to do with keeping with the Bureau's investigative mission. Your first reaction, we'll read a little bit of the story. This is coming, 100 members of class 2610 or 2601 are apparently going to go to D.C. to do foot patrols. So I did foot patrols right out of the police academy as a brand spanking new cop, but I was going to be assigned to patrol. So it sort of lended itself to the on-the-job training that you would hope to get. But it was more of like trial by fire / initiation because they put a bunch of brand new rookie cops in the hood. And it was ridiculous. And we all kind of knew it. Didn't you do a arrest of Ronald McDonald? That was, during my field training office. That was my first ever arrest, Ronald McDonald. Dude, I got cop
wasn't Ronald like McDonald wasn't Ronald McDonald naked? Am I remembering the details correct?
No, you're misremembering. That's a different story with a naked man. That got me on Cops. But anyway... Ronald McDonald was a derelict, homeless drug addict who was just peeing behind an abandoned house. And my field training officer said, hey, let's go stop this guy and practice your field interview skills. So we did. And hey, he got an ID, gives me his expired driver's license, and it says Ronald McDonald. So for the rest of my life, I like that he had Ronald McDonald on there. That's a pretty good moment. Steve, how well trained are people coming out of Quantico in your experience? You saw maybe 8 years of new agents coming into the field. Like, how well trained are they to go and do field foot patrols in an urban area? Zero. I mean, just talking about needing like intermediate level use of force tools. You have like a 2-hour session on how to use an ASP baton, and then they're like, here's your ASP baton. Right. Smack him in the hands is what I remember. Yes. Tap him in the hands or hit him below the shoulders so that you can, but don't hit him in the belly because that could be deadly force. And don't hit him above the shoulders because that could be deadly force. You can tap him in the knees and the shin burger. You can hit him in the handsies. Yeah, like, no, don't do that. No, don't touch me. I remember the snappy ASP thing where they were like snapping and you were supposed to hit hands. And they do the role play, the tactical training unit.
Everyone just went to the wrong thought. Role play is very common in law enforcement and EMS. You pretend to do something, so it's not the first time you've ever done it when you do it in real life.
Yeah, and the FBI pays actors to actually be professional role players and to engage with you, sort of like you would be in a police context. But all the scenarios that you're breaking into are FBI scenarios, which are supposed to be derivative of like a long, complicated, drawn-out investigation, and then they break something behind you, like, and it's like, oh, it's a bank robbery all of a sudden, like, but ninja comes out of a ceiling, But at the same time, that's not patrol.
This is actually really important because I said this to Matt Taibbi the other day and it blew his mind. And I've said this to journalists on regularly. Like, this is a common thing that I share with people, and I've forgotten how important it is for the general public. Folks, if you're new to the program and you've never heard this before, subscribe to the channel. Occasionally, I'll have to go back and touch base and bring people up to speed with some of the things we've been talking about for the last couple of years here. They didn't teach a single federal statute at the entire time that I was at the FBI Academy. Did you have a different experience?
No. I came out knowing what 1001 was.
That's the only federal statute that is mentioned by anybody. And 1001, folks, the 18 U.S.C. 1001 statute is false statements. So that can be a false statement on a document. It can be a lie to an FBI agent. And it's always like the general cudgel, like, you better tell me the truth, because if you don't, it could be a felony to lie to me. And then people go like, oh, and then they give up the whatever it is in the scenario because it's a role play, because the FBI does a lot of cosplay, LARPing, pretending to do law enforcement. It looks something like this, like a girl in tight booty jeans. She seems really tall. Is that just me? Maybe it's perspective.
I think you're accurate. Look at the guy next to her. That's a
the guy next to her is like a full-size male cop, and she looks like she's that tall. She's wearing a baseball cap. So, we did get some like tall, athletic type women that came through. By the way, the tall, athletic type women who might have been like a college volleyball player or was like a stud athlete, they are immediately incapacitated by men Steve Friend's size who weigh less than 100. We had guys who weighed like less than 150 pounds, and just the grip strike of a grown man is debilitating to these women. Like, you can literally lay on the ground, hold on to their ankles, and they can't do anything except shoot you. Like, that's how silly it is. But anyway, we learned 0 federal statutes. And I remember my final evaluation where they pulled us into a room. It was like a big auditorium. And they go, we just want to get some feedback on like your experiences from like being here at the Academy. Were they doing those focus group things when you were there too?
Yes, yeah, they asked for feedback. And
they're constantly improving the process by asking the people who are going through it, and then they immediately ignore it if it hurts their feelings.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so I'm sitting in this room. It's an auditorium that holds, I think it's probably the auditorium that I graduated in. So it's got a stage.
There's a main auditorium, then there's like a side auditorium. That
I can't remember which one it is. It's kind of not relevant. There were literally 100 people there. There were 2 sections of the 4 sections, and I had about 200 people graduate with me at the FBI Academy during that time. So 2 sections of 50 are sitting in this room, and we're being queried about what worked and what didn't. And I stood up as I'm listening to everyone just say bullshit. And it was all like, I just had such a great experience. And they had really good firearms training. I think that was pretty good. I think the combatives training wasn't bad. They had really competent practitioners that knew a lot of jujitsu. They also knew they weren't allowed to do jujitsu under federal, rules of force. So they would do it differently. And so you learn the tactics that are approved. And I think they did a good job teaching those as well. So kudos to the physical instruction. I think the tactical scenarios were not terrible, but they were like, here's what it looks like. Now go do it like a pro. Are you Delta Force yet? Like there was that kind of action, but nothing about the actual job, because my number of fights in the FBI when I was an agent was, I'm trying to think, 1, if 1, the number of times that I had to like put somebody in custody at gunpoint was 3. It wasn't common.
And what people need to realize about the training process is you are admonished if you do something that a cop would do. I mean, the instructors would say, Steve, you're not a cop anymore. You can't do those things. And I'm not saying that I was breaking the law or being unreasonable. I had somebody in a scenario who robbed a woman and ran, and I chased after him, and they're like, that's not your job anymore.
That's not what we do here. Yeah, we'll find them later.
You have to be a good witness, and that's it.
So they're teaching you something very, very different at the Academy. At the end of it, I listened to all these people say all this stuff, right? And nobody is calling out the elephant that is not just in the room, but is like flatulating in everyone's face in the room. So I stand up and I said, ma'am, this is my feedback for this program. I came here, and the only investigative experience that I had of any kind of formality was watching police procedural shows like Law and Order and SVU and CSI and movies where crime scenes are investigated. And that is still my only experience with investigating anything according to the way the FBI does it. I got zero. How do you open a case? What does the predication look like? What's the checklist of things you do next? Now that I have this case open, what is my first thing to do? Oh, I should do background checks on, or I should do database checks on all the players involved. Okay, then what do we do next? We do subpoenas. Nobody ever told me what it looked like. Like, what is the investigative process of the FBI? And by the way, no one taught me a single crime that I'm going to investigate. Mm-hmm. Not one. And
that's the travesty, because they have a complete environment there where you're in a bubble, and they could build the entire academy around some giant case. And a derivative of that is every experience you need to have along the way, like all those investigatory steps, the interview role playing going on, the tactical scenarios at the end, like everything could play into one giant case that you're working as a squad or break it down. And they don't do that. And
it could be, Steve, it could be a real case that the FBI actually investigated, like a historically significant case, where you go, okay, well, there was a long-term investigation into, I don't know, let's go to the FBI's heyday and say they took down the mob in the 70s. So this is a long-term La Cosa Nostra like investigation. Here was the initial complaint that came in. Here's how the case was predicated. These are some of the surveillances that were done. So all the scenarios could play into a legitimate case. Here's an inject is what they call it. So they inject in, this is when evidence was received. Oh, your squad did a subpoena. That was the next thing to do. You got back these bank records. The squad did this, a phone trace. And so you found out that these people were involved. Now you're going to go and do this. So they could actually work like a long-term 2-month scenario. Instead, my academy class, and I told this to Taibbi 3 days ago, and he fell out of his chair as far as I could tell. We investigated a fake case, which was being put on by non-FBI agents. They were support personnel that were teaching us, which is also offensive. And we investigated the Springfield Mafia from the effing Simpsons. And if you didn't have background knowledge of the American cartoon show The Simpsons to know who all the players were, like if you didn't know who Homer was or Abu, or if you didn't know like the principal Skinner, if you didn't know who these people were before you got to that class, that was requisite knowledge. And so you were going to be combat ineffective in that investigative scenario they were trying to teach us about like, what do they call it? Transnational organized crime.
That's way more entertaining. I had Trey Wallace, who committed FEMA fraud.
Well, you get all those things as well, right?
Yes.
Yes, but the long, like their introduction to organized criminal investigation was a cartoon.
Mm-hmm. Because they don't take it seriously.
I mean, how do you take that seriously? I walked out of there and I was like, what am I doing here? Mm-hmm. How did I leave my wife for the last like 4 months? And it ended up being 5 months. How did I walk away from like my spouse to sit here with these cartoon retards and be taught something that is so utterly ridiculous that if you told it to somebody who was not in the building at the time, one, they might not believe you. And if they did, they were like, how on earth do we spend $11 billion on this agency? And that's how you end up with these decisions. But guys, this all ties back to the clown show of human beings that resulted in, let's go get a bunch more stats. Let's go put a bunch of like female FBI agents and brand new trainees who have a mixed bag of experience. Some are going to be former cops. Some will be former law enforcement. Some will be former, EMS like I was. Some of them are going to be programmers, because there's a lot of computer programming. There's a lot of linguistic capabilities. There's a lot of accountants and lawyers. They spent 5 months learning that ninjas jump out of the ceiling and scary things could happen at any moment. And then you could be in the middle of a bank and every bank that you're in is about to get robbed. And then they're going to go put them on the street with cops with all what we call training scars and the stupid sort of theatrical presentation. And then they're going to walk around in whatever the hell that is. So if you're looking on the screen right now, that's exactly what it looked like in the summer of 2020 during the BLM riots in Washington, D.C. The technical term for that in the military, watch your ears, folks, if you need to, or censor it at work, but it's called a gaggle fuck. That's what you call it when you just have a bunch of people wandering randomly on the street. And it's something the military hates. It's something I saw every day at Quantico. Like, what does that show you?
And it's also being done with people who, in addition to learning about The Simpsons, have been told for the last 5 months that they are members of the preeminent premier law enforcement agency, and 50 million people applied for every single slot. So they are the best of the best. And it's like the way they train these Belgian Malamute canines, where from the puppy, they never allow them to fail at anything. And that's why they have so much confidence that they jump on to third-story buildings without any fear.
Because they've never not been able to do it.
They've never not been able to do it. And they've been going through scenarios that were 100% passed.
Right. That's all true. And the scariest thing is that they'll push people who have zero business being in there all the way through simply because they don't want to get another lawsuit against, like, we had women that were part of the FBI's settlement where they got close to $1 million a person for failing out of Quantico when they shouldn't have never even been allowed to go to Quantico. And Quantico, as I just told people, is not all that impressive. And they were shockingly bad at the thing that actually was sort of embarrassing to begin with. You know, people who took a shot and said, I think I shot my partner because I don't know what I'm doing with a handgun. Women who failed, and I keep saying women because women were overwhelmingly the scariest people to work with. There was a woman in my class who failed a non-pass-fail event. She was unable to complete what's called a familiarization. She held onto a shotgun, fired it, and never was able to keep it in her hands after pulling the trigger. And it just kept leaping out of her hands. And I kept waiting for her to cut off like one of my friend's heads with like a blast of buckshot. It was the scariest stuff you've ever seen. And then they were like, yeah, we're going to just pass her through this thing. It's not a pass-fail event, even though she can't complete it. Scary like that.
I had to partner with a female agent because alphabetically we were lined up on a lot of different things. And she failed fingerprinting, which is not a pass-fail event.
Which I don't think is pass-fail either.
You're failing finger painting right now.
Right.
But she's now a supervisor, naturally.
Naturally. Yeah. One of the least qualified human beings that came through my class, his previous job to being an FBI agent was an unarmed security guard at the Detroit Zoo. He is a national security supervisor, and he was famous for, at 25 years old, telling me he was too old to pick up brass. And he said, I'm getting too old for this shit. Actual direct quote. And I said, take it easy, Danny Glover, which was funny because not only was he black,
and he didn't understand the reference.
He didn't know who Danny Glover was, and he didn't know the reference from Lethal Weapon. So all of that was really, really silly. These are the kind of people that are now in charge of things. All right, I'm going to break away for 1 second, Steve. Let me do a read for the folks over at my Patreon. If any of this stuff is making you feel a little bit uncomfortable about the situations in your own country that maybe the FBI is not protecting you, it should. And yeah, why don't you guys check out my friends over at My Patriot Supply if you want to go in. The best time to prepare for something is when it's not actually happening yet. A major disruption could happen. You couldn't get to the store. What are you going to do? How long do you last with what's in your house? It's a worthwhile question. If it's less than a month, you probably should be checking out My Patriot Supply. If it's less than 3 months, honestly, that's kind of where I'm at right now. But right now, they've got a deal on the 4-week emergency food kit. Go to preparelikekyle.com. Did my picture go? Wait, where did this picture go? What's going on here? Hold on a second. Why do we not have the graphic? I probably deleted it because I'm a dummy. Ammo can. There we go. Hold on a second. I'm going to add this to the scene while I'm really frustrated that this went away. So, way to go, Kyle. Way to not have all the things that you were meant to have in the right spot. There we go. All right. So now we put it there. So there you guys can see what it looks like. There's a QR code. There's always a QR code there. That's my own fault. Check out preparelikekyle.com. Again, the website is preparelikekyle.com. Very easy to find it. You don't have to remember anything complicated. There's no slashes or anything else. This is the folks at My Patriot Supply doing their best-selling 4-week emergency food kit. It's going to come with an additional free week. So you're getting, what, 25% free on top of that? That's 2,000 calories a day. It lasts for up to 25 years in good storage. All you need to do is keep it out of the sun. Check something out like this if you have not already solved this problem. Emergency preparation only works if you do it before the emergency actually happens. Otherwise, you get yourself in one of those things where you're like, oh, how much would food cost me? Oh, maybe everything I have. All right, so stack that up, and then you get a free ammo can to go along that you can either give as a gift or you can store in a bug out location or another thing like that. Check out preparelikekyle.com. Link in the show description. I'll bring Steve back on here. Steve, inevitably, where do you think this is going to end up with having a bunch of people from our premier law enforcement agency wandering around in the streets of D.C.?
Taking a knee in front of protesters.
That was like, it was a really fast response. That was what a jerky thing to say. Okay, so not only is that the most likely thing that happens, because when you put untrained people into situations they're not ready for, then you end up getting fired 5 years after the fact. So here's Kash Patel's recent story. This came out in December. And I'm claiming all these scalps, by the way, because these people were on my list. The problem is they were on my list for years, and they had a non-proximate cause for firing. They probably all win their jobs back, don't you think?
Yeah, I need to get in touch with their attorneys.
I could probably help you do that. Okay. Former agents fired for kneeling amid the 2020 protests are suing Kash Patel and Bondi. There's 12 agents who filed a suit against the FBI and the DOJ alleging violations of their constitutional rights when they were fired for previously being cleared of all wrongdoing. This is where it gets really sketchy, because they were cleared of all wrongdoing because, 1, Chris Wray said it was fine. 2, he gave them a hug. 3, Larissa Knapp, who was in charge of the counterterrorism division in Washington, D.C., said they did nothing wrong and they saved lives. But most importantly, they had no training in this. So what did you expect a bunch of people to do? You put a bunch of women that worked indoors, and they were overwhelmingly women supervisors on that shift, and they worked counterintelligence. They basically sat and spied on people through FISA all day long. And I knew a handful of the folks that were in that team. They came into contact with people that were yelling at them and they were being mean. And they thought, well, shoot, why don't we just take a knee and let's just put ourselves in a vulnerable position, even though we're armed federal agents wearing body armor that have placards that say FBI.
Look, I went through a regular police academy, and part of it was training on dealing with crowds, right? There was a mobile field force element to it. But even that 1 day of exposure was not enough. They weren't going to throw you out there unless it was some sort of an emergency scenario. You had to actually get additional training to do that. And that was for regular police work, cops being cops. You don't get any of that training in the FBI, and nor should you, because that's not actually in their lane.
It has nothing to do with it. The defendants violated the agents' Fifth and First Amendment rights after internal reviews cleared them of wrongdoing. They actually did investigate this. This is one of those classic government investigated the government. They already knew what the answer was going to be because Chris Wray had already given them hugs and had met with them at Washington field office. Again, this has been my bugaboo for quite a long time. The people who were in that kneeling team didn't just stick around in the FBI after the fact. They all got promoted, especially the ones that were the females that were the supervisors on the day. They ended up in really senior sections. Like one of them was I think she was the deputy assistant director for all of CI.
Russian counterintelligence, I think.
Russian counterintelligence. So Sarah Linden was one of the people that was in there. She's the woman that people always see that they always say, she was so heavy and people don't realize that it was actually a female and she was clearly out of shape. And I don't know how she didn't do her PT test, but long and short, they groom those people for leadership positions. So it's a stunning turn of events, but they get thrown right to the wolves. Like they became basically a political token for another one of Kash Patel's stupid steps. And when it happens, they were like, oh, I've got a bad PR crisis. What if I fire all the people from 5 years ago who took a knee for BLM? That would make the base really happy. So we keep seeing this administration doing PR moves, and even just walking around in Washington, D.C. it's a PR move. There's nothing more than whether this is presence patrol for looks.
PR, it's just nothing but break glass in case of emergency leadership. Every single action is because of a failure. It's always a response to a failure. There's never anything that's just done on its own initiative because it's objectively good.
Let me read this from the lawsuit that they filed, which is in this Politico story. I'll put this in the show comments, folks. So if you're watching on Rumble, if you're watching on YouTube, by the way, like the video if you would. But this will be in there so you guys can read it yourself. It says, quote, as a result of their tactical decision to kneel, the mass of people moved on without escalating to violence. That presupposes an awful lot of things.
Yes,
the suit states, which contrast the tactics favorably against the actions of British soldiers at the 1770 Boston Massacre. Quote, the plaintiffs did not need to discharge their firearms that day. The plaintiffs saved American lives. By the way, that was the same thing that Larissa Knapp said. It's the same thing that Chris Wray said. It's the same thing that the previous FBI leadership said. The problem is that it's all documented that the FBI went through the due process to investigate and found them that they were fine, that they did what they were meant to do. Again, they didn't have training for it, so I understand why that was.
Look, from a BLM perspective, that all presupposes that BLM was in the process of murdering a bunch of federal agents.
They were totally okay with starting violence with these people and that they would have had to use it. And by the way, why would they have had to use firearms? Because they're not trained for less than lethal alternatives. They're not trained for crowd control, which means they never should have been there in the first place. And so the lesson from all of this should have been, hey, this was a stupidly bad idea. All those people should have not been in positions of leadership because they made bad decisions while they were there. For a contrast, my boss was a tactical guy at the time. My boss had been a West Pointer and a Ranger Battalion officer, and then he also was on HRT, and so he came from a very aggressive tactical background. And he looked around at the people. We were doing a night patrol, and he went, this is dumb. This is dangerous. There's no one here that is actually equipped to be able to handle this problem. We are going to take a walk from our office to the Hoover building, and then we're going to sit in the middle of the Hoover building as a QRF if something needs to happen, that we actually can do. And so we sat on chairs with a bunch of HRT guys who had their backpacks and their $50,000 night vision helmets and all this kind of stuff. And we just hung out there in the courtyard of the Hoover building, which people have probably seen pictures of, because that was the right move, was don't expose the people that you're supervising to dangerous, bad decisions. Mm-hmm. This was before the kneeling took place.
Yeah. This is no different than the stories that you hear about, a military leader who says, we're going to move troops to contact because they have to get a combat infantry badge. And that's how you get soldiers killed. And those guys are actually trained and in the right position. But it's an unnecessary risk.
There's This is not the only thing that's just come out. There's a story that went out yesterday about Aaron Rodgers, which I thought was funny, and this popped up in our little group chat, so I'm going to show this to people. Folks, this is coming from Fox News, so lest you criticize the source. Aaron Rodgers appears to call out the FBI director, Kash Patel, for celebrating with the U.S. men's hockey team. Again, all of the stuff that you're seeing right now, I believe, it's my personal opinion here, that all this stuff is PR response to how do we spin the horrific optics of a goofball being the only person there drinking with the hockey team, because he had no business being there in the first place. He can love American hockey just as much as Steve and his son love pro wrestling. They just do it at the pro wrestling event where they buy a ticket, or they do it in their living room where they're watching the archives. You can do anything you want in the courtesy of your own home. When you take a government-funded jet and you fly out there, and then you use your rank and your privilege to go into a locker room to be able to be part of a celebration when you're the only guy there who's not part of the team. And that was pretty evident from the live streams and the pictures. There was not like a bunch of other people there that were from the government. The freaking heck was he doing?
He was violating the Me Too movement.
He's a, what do they call him? A puck bunny? There was a whole story that we read about the dark and dirty nature of the sexual fetish of puck bunnies who love to,
There's
sniff the
bad
holsters.
bunnies. I get it. Okay.
All right. There are some bad bunnies, is what you're saying. This picture of Kash Patel is absolutely hysterical. In fact, I may need to introduce that into our, into my little repertoire of favorite FBI director pictures that are fun.
He's looking at that Amazonian agent who hovers over him.
He looks like he knows that he's in trouble, but he's not sure how he's going to be able to handle it. Okay, so the story goes is that Aaron Rodgers was apparently talking about this situation. He was doing it on a sports program that I don't keep track of. I'm sitting here sizing this while we're talking because it's funnier. Here, let me put this on the screen. That's way better. There, that's a great look. He doesn't call him out by name, but it appears that he was criticizing him for partying with the U.S. hockey team in the locker room in Milan. Again, this stuff is not going to go away because it's just cumulative. It's over and over. It's dumb mistakes. And the cycle goes like this. Kash Patel does embarrassing, stupid thing that anybody who had a sense would go, hey, sir, that's a really bad idea. But nobody is giving him that advice. Like, hey, sir, this already went wrong worse. By the way, you just fired people for this 45 days ago. Maybe that's not a great idea. So you start with that. Then there's a big backlash. Then there's a MAGA attempt to spin it where they're like, oh, if you don't love Kash Patel for what he's doing, like that's what real Americans do. They take $60 million government jets, fly out to Italy so that they could drink a beer, a freaking Michelob Ultra of all things. You can drink a Michelob Ultra with the U.S. hockey team. By the way, none of you could do that. And none of you could do any of those things. You couldn't get into the locker room. You couldn't get a private jet to fly you there. You wouldn't have private security. It wouldn't be paid. His meals were on per diem. So Aaron Rodgers doesn't call him by name, but he just apparently was like, can we get that one guy out of the locker room, though, and get him working on something else? Because it's a bad look. Come on, have some self-awareness. Probably makes sense to have sports players going, nobody wants somebody that has nothing to do with my team in a moment when we're all celebrating. We really don't.
Yeah. The entire thing is just kind of this random, I mean, can you imagine, let's just insert another FBI director there, right? Like if Christopher Wray just shows up, and it doesn't have to be the Olympics.
Do Jim Comey, because Jim Comey is like 11 feet tall. He would look really weird.
He would have definitely stuck out like a sore thumb or a middle finger, right? And he's partying with Team USA basketball, because that's probably more appropriate for him. And he's just hyping it up with the guys in the locker room. That's really weird.
Should we go to the website that shows Kash Patel falling on his ass for some reason? This is the other thing. You open yourself up to stupidity when you go do dumb things, and people are like, well, he's a big hockey fan. Like he played hockey in high school and college. First of all, if he played hockey in college, no, he didn't. I mean, he might have played intramurals with like drunken frat boys, but if you listen to people who played hockey with him, guys like Richie McGinnis, who plays in one of the hockey leagues that Kash plays in DC, he said that he's easily the worst player in the league, but he's very well liked by his own team, which is called the Dons. No relation to anything else. Here is that story. Oh, sorry. We'll put the story back on. Oh, okay, so there he is. God, he looks like he's seeing boobs for the first time in this picture. Am I? What's going on there? What are you looking at?
That's why he doesn't have a girlfriend. Just girls.
Just a girl who's his
friend.
friend. Okay, so here we go. Anyone who wants to see Patel fall on his ass while playing hockey. So this is why this is the problem. You're introducing the possibility for more of these stupidity stories, and you create an entire like spin cycle of negative publicity, and you're going to go, oh, like the FBI director can do all kinds of dumb things if he's kicking ass at his job. The problem is we led off with a story about the Epstein, bungling. And the reason that they're calling this the Epstein administration is because Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, Todd Blanche all agreed to close the investigation They did maybe the dumbest thing you could do. They no longer had the potential top cover of saying we have an ongoing investigation, so we can't comment on it. So we'll just scroll down here real quickly because this has no. There's Kash right here.
Completely out of context.
Oh, Blanc, and he's in the FBI versus Secret Service thing. He fell down, but he got back up.
Can I also add that he got himself issued the jersey number 9 because he's the 9th FBI director and he wants to do the mini Donald Trump thing where the number is significant, and 45 and 47. Everybody knows the number for the president. Nobody knows anybody else's number. Like, what number is J.D. Vance at vice president? He's number 2 in the entire government. But
right, nobody knows.
Kash Patel wants to do the mini Trump, so number 9. That's why I put it on his Punisher challenge coin.
It says here, the reader says it was the 3rd time he actually fell, so you have to leave your imagination, and the FBI lost the game 5-4. So anyway.
They love to hype that game, too. I mean, I guess it's to raise money.
I remember seeing it when I was out there. Man, I remember seeing it. So they would always talk about it. I always thought it was lame and stupid that we had people that were playing hockey with an FBI jersey on. I didn't understand why we had a FBI intramural hockey team. I guess some like private industry will have like a team sports ball, like they'll go do softball or...
But it was to raise money for, I think, like downed officers' families, which is a good initiative. But at the same time, why didn't they just pass the hat around to raise money? Why did they have to play
what does
hockey?
all that gear cost? Like, let's just be real. Like, that's probably, is that funded by the individual? Is the agency involved in any of that stuff? Are they paying it out of their pockets? Because you and I both know FBI agents, and I imagine Secret Service agents, are famously cheap. To the point where people would be like, why do you have that belt? If you just wait for 5 years, you could be on SWAT and then they'll give you a belt like that. And I'm like, well, then I have 5 years with no belt, asshole. Like, that's why. It's not that hard. It's a freaking $150 belt. That's why it's the cheapest people that I've ever worked with in my entire life in anything, including when I worked in like restaurants where people were just scraping by. FBI agents are cheaper than them by a lot.
Oh, that's why they put your gear on your books, because if you leave it around, people will steal it.
True. The funniest thing to me was that there was a bunch of stuff that was not on books, and it was always like
expensive stuff too.
Really expensive stuff was not on book, but the cheap stuff, they'd be like, hold on to it. I remember randomly, and you know this too, but like this is why I hate our federal government, and I hate the way they do business. And this goes to the Kristi Noem thing, which we're going to get to in just a second here. The idea that at the end of the year, if you don't spend all your funds, they're going to take it away and you won't get it next year. So they're like, Steve, do you need a $300 pocket knife for your Indian reservation? And you're like, no, I need printer paper and more toner. And they're like, well, a pocket knife is what's coming. So here you go. Like, enjoy this cool Tops Buck knife rescue thing that you'll never use.
Yeah. We can't give you ink for the printer because that comes out of a different pocket in the cargo pants that are the federal government.
That's right.
But you
what
can
we
have
can give
this
you
knife.
is the super...
and also a 4-wheeler.
We're going to give you a Arc'teryx jacket, though.
Yes.
Even though you're in Florida, but you really needed it when you were in Nebraska, but we didn't have it in Nebraska for you. So sorry about that. The Omaha office didn't have any money for jackets, but Florida does, because everyone blew their money on 4-wheelers. It's just dumb.
We didn't have money for air conditioners in the vehicles in Florida. They told me to roll down my windows.
All right, let's get to the big kind of wild news of the day. I don't think that we caused this, folks, for whatever it's worth. By we, I mean yesterday I did an entire podcast pointing out for the second day in a row the bad testimony that Kristi Noem was giving. And should we put I'll get Steve's thought on this. There we go. There's the thumbnail. What is that look she has? Steve, I don't think we caused this, but I do think that these interactions between Senator John Kelly asking simple questions and then the ones that were the follow-ups done by both Democrats and Republicans in the House, this $220 million stories from ProPublica, I think they get the scalp for taking down Kristi Noem. That's my take. What say you about this?
ProPublica, but then I also look at the political machinations, and the Democrats are going to use any opportunity that they can to go after a member of the Trump administration. And I think that the Republicans kind of view her as like, we don't want to nominate her, so we'll give you this scalp. This is like, the way that the communists will give Bill Clinton over on an Epstein thing.
All right. I think that's fair. So here's the deal. As reported earlier in a bunch of different news outlets, but this is CNN's version of it. They're asking, who is Markwayne Mullin? He was named to replace Kristi Noem as the Homeland Security Secretary. The announcement came out yesterday. I actually should pull up. I think I have the... let me see if I can pull up the actual Donald Trump post, because the Trump post is really funny, as is common in Donald Trump's posts. But, I mean...
Does it have lots of capitalization?
It's like a quiet FU in so many ways. And like being promoted to a lower job is transparent. The only people who would say that it's not what it is are people who are being fools. Here, let's read Kristi Noem's version of it. So here we go. She wrote, this is a hostage post, folks. Thank you, POTUS, for appointing me as the special envoy for the Shield of the Americas, hence my Shield and Marvel references earlier. Secretary Rubio and Sec War, that's Pete Hegseth, are incredible leaders, and I look forward to working with them to closely to dismantle the cartels that have poured drugs into our nation and killed our children and our grandchildren. The Western Hemisphere is absolutely critical for U.S. security. In this new role, I'll be able to build on the partnerships and national security expertise that I forged over the last 13 months as Secretary of Homeland Security. Nobody knows what the hell that means. We've made historic accomplishments at Homeland Security to make America safe again, delivered the most secure border in American history, but obviously no statutory fix because they could fix that and or break it again in 1 second. 3 million illegal aliens have left the United States. Notice, not deported, just left because they're trying to basically bank heavily on the so-called self-deportations. We've located 145,000 children. Nobody's ever seen these children. They're just where they were supposed to be, and they went and just knocked on the door. FEMA has delivered disaster relief at a 100% faster rate. We ushered in a golden era of travel. Somebody try wearing boots at the airport the way that I do. You'll find that is not the case. You still have to take off your boots. And I don't know what the golden era of travel was, but people used to be able to have a full meal and smoke cigarettes on the plane. Anyway, we've saved the American taxpayer $13 billion and revitalized the U.S. Coast Guard. The problem is that they also wasted about $250 million on a personal ad campaign to fluff up her image to the American people like she's a horseback riding. She's like Gene Autry or something like that. I don't know. I don't know what this campaign was, but this may have been the death blow because you can do that. What you can't do is say Donald Trump said it was okay. That's my guess. I think this may have been the death blow for her.
But the president approved ahead of time you spending $220 million running TV ads across the country in which you are featured prominently.
Yes, sir. We went through the legal processes, did it correctly.
Did the president know you were going to do this?
Yes.
He did?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
And one thing, Senator, I think would be helpful to know is how effective that communications has been. That
well, they
overwhelmingly
were effective in your name recognition. I personally just, to me, it puts the president in a terribly awkward spot. And I'm not saying you're not telling the truth. It's just hard for me to believe, knowing the president, as I do, that you said, Mr. President, here's some ads I've cut, and I'm going to spend $220 million running them, that he would have agreed to that. I don't think Russ Vought at OMB would have agreed to that. It's something we have to defend. I'm on the Appropriations Committee. My research shows that you did not bid them out, that you pick, in fact, one of the people you picked, the strategy group, Safe America Media was a company formed 11 days before you picked them, and that the strategy group got most of the money, and the head of that is married to your former spokesperson.
That's coming from your own party.
Yeah. And apparently, so I read that a spokesperson from Department of Homeland Security tried to do the Erica Knight and spin it and say that the $220 million was used to run these commercials in foreign lands, 8 different countries, and they were able to reach 46 million people, which would mean that the Department of Homeland Security spent like $5 per person when they could have just run the ads during the Super Bowl for 8 million and reached, 130 million people?
Yeah, or they could just not run the ads and nobody cares, and you could just do press releases and people would cover it if you said things that were interesting or salacious. So here's what Donald Trump said. It's on the screen right now. This is his post, and this is brutal. This is absolutely brutal, I think. He said, "I'm pleased to announce that the highly respected United States Senator from the great state of Oklahoma, Markwayne Mullin, will become the United States Secretary of Homeland Security, DHS, effective March 31st, 2026, so through the end of the month. The current secretary, Kristi Noem, who has served us well, has numerous and spectacular results, especially on the border, and will be moving to be special envoy for the Shield of the Americas, our new security initiative in the Western Hemisphere. We were pleased to announce in Doral, Florida on Saturday. Thanks, Kristi, for your service at Homeland." And then goes on to talk about Markwayne Mullin, and that's fine. When you have to create a job for somebody, if people don't understand this is worth covering. The Trump administration has a no scalps policy before the midterms. I don't know if people are aware of that, but This is what I've heard from everybody that knows. That's why they're not going to get rid of anybody unless they really, really F up. And I think this might have been the biggest F up. You claim that Donald Trump signed off on you spending $220 million. And it's not just that. Steve, we're in the middle of a DHS shutdown. So they are now asking for funding and people are looking at what are you spending the money on? It's like you're spending the money on advertisements where you dressed up like a rodeo clown.
Mm-hmm. And you want to talk about sticking the knife in and then twisting it. He makes her the special envoy for an event that starts today. So she doesn't even get to like disappear, maybe regroup, go commiserate with Corey Lewandowski. Instead, she's got to immediately go down to Florida for this event. And in the press release, her name isn't even mentioned as being part of the envoy of people.
Because she blew it probably in the last 48 hours. And so anyway,
they scrambled fast to get her into something, the lateral move. This is clearly a demotion.
This is the Mike Waltz treatment. This is like, oh, you were in a really important position. You blew it. You embarrassed everybody. You're now the scapegoat. And as the scapegoat, we are now going to send you to a new job. You're going to be the ambassador to Iceland, or you're going to be the special envoy to shield a Marvel creation that we came up with. If you guys are not familiar with the scapegoat, this is a concept that I was introduced to by the actual new recommended Secretary of Homeland Security. This is Mark Wayne Mullin, a man who owns a plumbing company and is worth a lot of money from Oklahoma, letting us know that kind of like real special way that people in Oklahoma communicate. This was on the Benny Johnson show just before I showed up. Should we play the entire clip?
Send it.
If you guys have never heard the story of the cross-eyed bear, I introduced it to Benny Johnson's audience right here. This is what happened to Kristi Noem. She just became the scapegoat. By the way, the Elvis he's referencing is Elvis Chan at the FBI.
It could be, but what you don't want is an scapegoat. So you don't want Elvis to be the scapegoat. Right now, Elvis is probably the scapegoat, but there was zero chance Elvis is making this call himself.
Somebody who is absolutely here to diagnose a disease is the great Kyle Seraphin. Elvis still being in the building at the FBI. Let's go.
Every guess is
Kyle Seraphin, I am sorry for the corny Elvis joke being in the building.
That was a good segue, actually. I thought that was great.
I've been trying, man. I didn't want to pull it with the senator, right? He's a very serious man. So I was like,
you know what? He's a serious man, but he's from Oklahoma. And did you hear what he just dropped on you? An scapegoat? That's not a thing. It's scapegoat. But in Oklahoma, they got special phrases and they say things in different ways that I went to school in Oklahoma. So I have a lot of love. I'm a Sooner. I graduated from there. I'm going to drop this on you. And I'll send it over to the senator as well. When I was there, I had a boss while I was working at a computer company who kept saying things were cross-eyed bears. He would just go, I'd say I had a problem. And he'd go, oh, man, that's a cross-eyed bear. And I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, it's a cross-eyed bear. And then he would go and do it again. And he would say, that's a cross-eyed bear. And I was like, I don't know what the heck a cross-eyed bear is. Just like I don't know what an scapegoat is. But he kept saying it over and over again. Finally, I repeated it back to him one time. He said something and I go, dude, that's just a cross-eyed bear. And he's like, what's a cross-eyed bear? And then I knew something was wrong. And I realized it was an Oklahoma thing. And he just goes, can you use it in a sentence? So we did it again. He goes, no, son. A cross-eyed bear. It's a common expression in the South to say that there's a cross you bear. I just heard cross-eyed bear, just like I just heard a scapegoat. And you know what? Oklahoma's a special place. Like, don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
Think about this, Kyle. If we have so many serious things to talk about, but like, why not? All right, I'm from farm country in middle of nowhere too, and Iowa was where I was raised. You could be talking about an escaped goat.
That's right. It could be a thing.
It could, like the fence breaks, a goat gets out. Goats
You've got to go get it. You've got to track it down.
Animals. That's right.
In the same way,
animals. They can climb. They can jump.
Yeah. Cross-eyed bear. He's got troubles. A cross-eyed bear is a problem. It's walking through the woods. It's hitting trees. It doesn't have depth perception. Like there's all kinds of issues that go along with that.
Are you ready for this one?
Now, to add another layer to this story of the multiverse, a nice Marvel reference. I followed you up on Benny Johnson's show on this exact episode.
Did you really? Did I know that? I must have known that.
I'm pretty sure that this was the one because Mark Wayne Mullins was on that day.
Yeah,
and then we got into dad jokes with him and I had to.
I loosened him up a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, he made some sort of dad joke to me, and I was like, well, how do you know that you've been told a dad joke? When it becomes apparent.
That's terrible. Oh, Steve. This is terrible. That's absolutely terrible. Anyway, always fun to be able to kind of pop in and do some of these funny things and also have these like weird little contexts that we have. Anyway, who he is, he's replacing. It's not great. I started getting kind of interested because a couple of people, and I saw this the other day. Mullin has stepped out in a really big way, and he must have been auditioning for this role. Maybe he was asking about it earlier on. Maybe this was something they were thinking about, because he's stepped in this big spokesperson role for the Trump administration. He's been defending the hell out of the Iran thing. He's been going on all the news circuits. He's out there talking about everything that needs to be done, and he's saying exactly the right things to be able to be like a 100% pro Team Trump guy. That's what he keeps doing. Now he's there. Now he gets to be Homeland Security. That's a big jump up.
Yeah, for him. And I'd be curious to know what his background is. And like, look.
Oh, hold on. Let me tell you his background. Keep going.
I don't want to talk out of both sides of the mouth. We always talk about, like, we just need regular people in the position, and you cannot presume that you need some sort of special knowledge or education in order to run these things.
That's right.
But I also come in with the idea of, I want a regular person in there because they're going to be like, this is stupid. Let's just close it down. Which you would hope a business
He is not
person
a guy that seems like he's willing to push back against certain things. Pugilistic senator. He wrestled in college, briefly fought as a professional mixed martial artist. Listen, I got no problem with someone coming from a blue collar background. In fact, some of my favorite people are. I got a text message from a friend of this program, Sean Witzman, and he did one of my favorite interviews I've ever done. Like, when I interviewed him, I was like, man, I feel awesome about this. It was a guy that I knew nothing about. He was a J6 journalist. He's a total weirdo. I think you would agree with that. He does gonzo journalism, and he's a plumber by trade, and he's a deep, deep thinker. And he's a voracious reader, and he's incredibly intelligent. And so his background as being a plumber would be almost something that jumps in front. There's a little clip that we had from that show that when I was promoting it, I said, do you know a lot of plumbers that read, that spend all their time reading Tolstoy? And he said, probably more than you'd expect. And I think that answer is probably true. There's a lot of people in the trades that are brilliant. And so there's no correlation in my mind between having an academic degree and having a cerebral cortex that's capable of complex thought. Sure. I don't think they're related.
I connect that to, like, long haul truckers. I mean, those guys are
That's right.
all day long with the opportunity to listen to audiobooks or podcasts. I mean, a lot of them are really smart, and they're
and more importantly, well-read. Yeah, they're autodidactic, which is the educated themselves. We've got guys that we had someone call in last night to our call-in program, and he was getting into a discussion about the War Powers Act, and it was pretty sophisticated. And he was putting the context of the original framing of the Constitution and the original drafts, and how they were putting in the concept of making war versus declaring war, et cetera, et cetera. And there were discussions that were being done at the time, and you can read some of the writing. You can listen to some of the writing that people have read into podcasts, and whether you're into history and things. There are people that are very educated without a formal degree in it. So I don't think that's a relevant thing. I don't think that's a good argument against. There's also some people that are blue collar. There's some people that are really freaking dumb. And if you're just kind of like a generally dishonest kind of human being, you can make a ton of money by being not that smart. A lot of the people that we used to catch in the criminal space would have tons of money, especially in the white collar. They were just bad people who made a lot of money. So these are not mutually exclusive categories. To be educated is not to be intelligent, and to be intelligent does not mean that you're going to be successful. There are plenty of people that are not very intelligent and incredibly successful because they have low scruples and morals. So just all of these things kind of circulate, and it's not like the triangle that we did the other day, the last time we were talking about the brokey and the principled, and what was the other piece? There were three pieces of the triangle.
Oh, I was more tied down to the different emotions that you're supposed to have as a man.
That's right.
So there's the political success, though, is pretty clear to me. You don't have to be a genius. For the most part, political success means you just have to be one chapter ahead of most people who vote, because then they assume you've read the entire book. That's why we have a lot of retards in government.
We do have a lot of retards that are literally reading the book as it's being, read aloud. That's the first time they've ever heard it. And then they're reacting in the moment, and they're not that bright. So anyway, so he brought his fighting spirit. He wanted to fight a guy who was there. It was O'Brien, who was one of the, I think he was a Teamster. And that gave me the concept of maybe doing a congressional Thunderdome. I actually think we should settle all the disputes in Congress with a fight. Yeah, he was a Teamsters boss, Sean O'Brien.
How do you think your representative would do in a Thunderdome?
My representative is 84, so he'd be the first dead, but that would be fine. We would honor his sacrifice. And even though we are, in fact, as the chat is pointing out, ruled by retards, it would be, that'd be a sacrifice I'd be willing to make. I'd do the Lord Farquaad thing. It's like, some of you will die, but that is a sacrifice I'm willing to make. I would gladly sacrifice some members of Congress that want to fight. I think MTG would be an interesting character. She shouldn't have left because she would have been great in Congressional Thunderdome. I don't think AOC would be that capable, but she's probably got the hair pulled out. Like, yeah, I mean, this would be high-level entertainment for what is otherwise just awful stuff that we see. What's interesting is that I saw a little post about him, and I was following up on Markwayne Mullin only because he's popped up in the news a bunch. He's saying a lot of things, and he's defending the Trump administration. So I was like, well, Let's find out what he's all about here. This is a website called Quiver Quant, or Quiver Quantitative. And they have an entire tab about congressional trading. Now, people may be interested in this in the future, and I will put this in the comments for YouTube and Rumble to read. And these are some of the stocks that he's bought. His stock portfolio is fairly valuable, and it looks like his total volume of trading is 24.18 million in 509 trades. The net worth that they say that he has is about $66 million, and I think that's only estimating the stocks. So this is not a poor man. He's 48 years old, worth north of 60-something million dollars. That's kind of a lot. And then I started wondering, well, has he made any trades that people are upset about? And it turns out maybe he has. These are things that are coming from this Quiver Quant website. So I'm not validating the truth of it, but it sounds like this is what they do. So guys, do your own research and make sure if it's accurate. But I saw multiple reports saying it, and then this is where the AI led me to for substantiating these reports. Senator Mark Wayne Mullin purchased shares of Chevron Corporation and RTX Corporation. That's Raytheon, by the way. On December 29th, according to financial disclosures, just days before the United States conducted a high-profile operation targeting Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Mullin serves on the Senate Armed Services Committee, which oversees U.S. military policy, defense programs, and national security matters. They're just pointing out facts. The disclosed purchases were valued between $15,000 and $50,000 for each stock, and each were jointly owned. The trades were executed December 29th, 2025, and publicly disclosed January the 16th of 2026. Chevron is directly exposed to U.S. policy towards Venezuela through sanctions, licensing, and oil sector restrictions. RTX is a major U.S. defense contractor with significant DoD missile and defense system contracts. Since the trades, Chevron has gone up approximately 10%. Let me see when this was written. This was written January 20th. They've gone up since then. RTX has increased about 9.5%. We can actually go to this. Raytheon has actually done a pretty good run. This is when the trades were done, right down here at 168.80, or give or take. What are you doing? What was the date? Let me go back. Date was the 29th. Yeah. Let's go to December 29th. Happened right about here at this localized low, 184, and now they're up to about 203 this morning. Should we refresh it and see if they're doing well today?
Sure.
Oh, they went up today too. They're up 2.7% just on the day. So in the last, there's 6 months, they're up about 50% over the last 6 months. So anyway, good trades. Well done. The alleged conflict of interest is mitigated because Donald Trump said that he didn't tell anybody in the Senate. He didn't go and address these committees and tell them what he was going to do, but that doesn't mean he didn't individually tell people what he was going to do. And this guy seems like he's been kind of a Trump spokesperson. So anyway, war is good for all the people that want to make money on war stocks. And it turns out Congress is undefeated in doing those trades. They just have a really good sense of what's going on in the world, I guess. And this Raytheon stock is something that was called out. So there you have it. And the Oklahoman covered it as well. So here's the Oklahoman. I'll include these in today's links, so you guys can find them if you want to go back and read and double check my math. I don't know what it means. I just know that it's been reported. These reports are going back to the January when Venezuela happened, before Iran kicked off. What do you think?
And now he's doing bangers. I mean, the imminence of the threat in Iran necessitated us to go out and take action over there. I wonder if there was some imminent need for him to make those trades just before we decapitated the Venezuelan government.
When you say imminent, do you mean the buzzword imminent?
The big questions that I think you're going to hear from a lot of the senators is why now there was no imminent threat. We know that's what Mark Warner is already saying. What will you say to that? And what do you expect the Trump folks will say to that?
I think that's a ridiculous idea that there's no imminent threat from a regime who chants death to Americans since 1979. There's no imminent threat from a regime that sponsored Hezbollah, who killed 220 Marines and 18 sailors in 1983 in Lebanon. Go tell it to the families of IED victims in Iraq and Afghanistan, sponsored by Iran, that this regime is no threat. You know, in 19...
That's fair. You want to talk about the concept of imminence, since we brought up some of the training? They do teach you a lot about the word imminent when you're at the law enforcement academies that I've been to.
That's an extremely important word when it comes to the use of force, use of deadly force. Mm-hmm. The subject of the force has to present an imminent threat of death or serious injury to you or another person before you take deadly force on that person before you exact that onto them. So what is imminent? It means like finger on the trigger. It is about to happen. And also part of the use of force, deadly force policy for like a Department of Justice, there are certain caveats in there. And one of them is you don't shoot a vehicle as it's fleeing, right? And I was thinking about the word imminence in the context of shooting at a vehicle. If a police officer sees a bad guy and he's driving away from the scene, unless he's engaged in a violent action, you have to take action on him. Let's just say he's done a burglary and he's now driving away. If you step in the way of the vehicle and then claim after the fact that that's why you had to shoot, that's not an imminent threat. It's a situation that you created, sort of like putting a bunch of American military assets in a particular region and then saying, well, the car was going to hit us, so we had to take action.
Would you say, based on what you've seen video-wise and the years that have come up in between, on January 6th, was there an imminent danger that Ashley Babbitt presented to Lieutenant Michael Byrd before he shot her in the neck going through that doorway?
No, there was no firearm presented. Her hands weren't even there. And certainly him going on the radio afterwards and claiming that he was taking fire would indicate that there was maybe a post-meditated murder that actually happened.
Would it be fair to say that even though Ashley Babbitt didn't represent an imminent threat of death or serious physical injury to anybody in that room at that, like imminent, but it could have developed into a deadly force scenario with a further unveiling, depending on what happened next?
Yes, but depending on what happened next would have probably been the relevant portion of that.
In other words, it would have been a deadly force situation if it had been a deadly force situation, but it wasn't because it wasn't?
Yeah, I mean, the bomb would have been a bomb if it had been a bomb, but viability, right?
A lot of this is problematic because some people will remember that some of these people that are Trump allies now that are in the orbit of, whether it be a Lindsey Graham, who we just played, or now Markwayne Mullin, who's going to take over at DHS, they've got kind of a bad history on some of the things that I think a lot of MAGA people, and I'm not one of them, but I can observe from the outside, folks, and I can just see the things that piss you guys off. They also irritate me because the thing is hypocrisy. People don't like hypocrisy. It kind of offends us. Here's Markwayne Mullin talking about the shooting of Ashley Babbitt. This has been making the rounds, so we'll play it for you guys to have this concept. This is another one of those imminent threat questions.
I guarantee you, I don't know for a fact, but I guarantee you he's never had to pull his weapon in a manner like that before. He was the last person in the world that ever wanted to use force like that. And he wasn't wanting to do that. I know for a fact because after it happened, he came over and he was physically and emotionally distraught. And I actually gave him a hug. And I said, sir, you did what you had to do. And I mean that. Unfortunately, the young lady, her family's life has changed. And it was an unfortunate situation that she lost her life and some people lost their loved ones. But the lieutenant's life has also changed too, because if it's the first time you've ever had to use lethal force, that doesn't ever leave you. And it wasn't his choice. He didn't show up to work that day to have to do that. He was doing his job, and he got put in a situation where he had to do his job because there was members still in the balcony. And if you're going to present your weapon in a manner and give commands and they still don't listen and they still approach, you don't have a choice, because either you have to, at that point, discharge your weapon in a manner of self-defense, or that weapon's going to be taken away from you. It's going to be used on you, and it's going to put all of our lives in danger too.
You want to discuss that?
You could reholster the weapon. I mean, just saying, like, that happens all the time. Situations de-escalate. You don't have to then just fire upon the person because you broke leather. And I love how he's like, look, I don't know the facts, but I'll guarantee you because I got a feeling. I mean, that's the sort of steady hand on the wheel that you want at a $300 billion agency.
Yeah, that seems fair. There's other people that did stuff like that too, that have had, like I said, they hang out in this orbit. And I've been told very reliably by people who would know that there is no crisis, that MAGA people are not looking at these folks like the Lindsey Graham types or people that have been like Tony Gonzalez, who originally got an endorsement from Trump, that people who are like part of the party are not the problem, or maybe John Cornyn, who is the senator from Texas that a lot of people in Texas want to see out. Like, none of these people are the problem. Donald Trump, this was the thing I heard the other day. Donald Trump tells me by who he endorses whether or not he actually likes that person. And the way that it worked, I had a woman in Texas explain this in the middle of an X space. It blew my mind, but I'm like, oh, there are real people out there that do this. Steve, if Donald Trump endorses someone that I don't like, what he's doing is calling attention to this person that I don't like so that I know not to vote for them. But if Donald Trump endorses someone that I do like, and generally the MAGA people do like, he's letting us know that that is a real endorsement.
Isn't that the guy who was stalking Jodie Foster because she was talking to him through the movie? She was sending secret signals to his head.
Yeah, no, that's it. If you can trust the plan, the Patriots are in charge now. Here we go. Gathering storm, it's coming or something. Lindsey Graham.
Trump and I, we've had a hell of a journey. I hate it to end this way. Oh my God, I hate it. From my point of view, he's been a consequential president. But today, first thing you'll see, all I can say is count me out. Enough is enough. I've tried to be helpful. But when the Wisconsin Supreme Court ruled 4-3 that they didn't violate the Constitution of Wisconsin, I agree with the 3, but I accept the 4. If Al Gore can accept 5-4, he's not president. I can accept Wisconsin 4-3. Pennsylvania, it went to the Second Circuit. So much for all the judges being in Trump's pocket. They said, no, you're wrong. I accept the Pennsylvania Second Circuit that Trump's lawsuit wasn't right. Georgia, they said the Secretary of State took the law in his own hands. He changed the election laws unlawfully. A federal judge said, no, I accept the federal judge even though I don't agree with it.
Look, that's the MAGA now, I'm told.
Yeah. Just being one chapter ahead, right? Just that's the way that you represent yourself to be a subject matter expert, a real genius, you know everything that's going on. He doesn't. And I'm really disappointed in the goldfish memories that I guess members of the current White House have, because that guy was doing that publicly. I mean, do you remember back in 2016 when Lindsey Graham was saying that, you know, Donald Trump was the worst option, and then Donald Trump doxed him? He handed out his cell phone. Like, does he not remember that hostility that went on there?
No, they all remember it. They hope that you don't remember it.
Yeah, but when was the apology? When look, Lindsey Graham, explain to me the moment that you said that Donald Trump has evolved from being the worst option to now the greatest president in the history of the republic. Can you actually say that and not have it connected to dropping warheads?
He's Ronald Reagan. He's the gold standard of what Republican presidents are supposed to be. So saith Lindsey Graham. I got another one that's kind of disappointing to people. Look, folks, like, nobody wants to be here pointing out that one thing was said, another thing was done, and now we have potentially something worse happening. This is always the danger. I feel like Donald Trump picks terrible people for a lot of positions because he judges loyalty way over competency. I'd much rather have a smart person that disagrees with me and has principle than somebody who agrees with everything I said and doesn't think through anything, because then I'm going to end up in the fire at some point in time. I got a comment the other day from somebody that is in a position to know, that said, it doesn't matter whether you're talking about Kristi Noem or you're talking about Mullin, like, both of them have room temperature IQs. They're not bright people, but they are willing to get into power. And so, you know, that's kind of the game. If you can do the right thing, you're going to stay in power. And I'm going to play you something from Grant Stinchfield, who's in a position to know, because what is he on, like Real America's Voice or something? He's on one of these programs. He's a TV presenter that knows exactly the mind of Donald Trump. If this turns out to be the case, and it probably will be, unfortunately, then people can do the 3D, 4D, 5D, 42D underwater chess all they want. You're going to have to explain to me how I'm supposed to get excited about it in 1 second, because John Cornyn apparently is going to take over for Paxton, and then they'll give Paxton some job in the administration. Here we go. All right. Before we go there, like the video if you guys are watching. If you haven't done that already, subscribe over on YouTube, subscribe on Rumble. Do both. We'd appreciate it. You guys are the way that we keep this thing going. Check out the Tackleberry project, which is posted on both of those. It's at I'm Your Tackleberry if you guys want to find it. Got the set built, so it's going to start happening. Reviews, gear, tips, tactics, training, etc., tools that we want to use for firearms things and things that are like man-related that are way more interesting to me than all this. You can find that at I'm Your Tackleberry, and then also find us on Spotify, KyleSeraphinShow.com. We'll play a Spotify ad right now, and then I'm going to get Steve Friend here on the screen. Take a deep breath. You ready? I don't like Grant Stinchfield. Every time I hear him, he seems like just like a complete sycophant for the people that don't want to think. You have any positive things? Did you ever deal with Grant in any meaningful way?
Sure. I mean, I've been a guest on his program. He had me as a guest on his podcast. He's always been really nice and gracious to me whenever I'm on his program. But he's definitely knows where his bread is buttered, and that is where he's going to speak very positively of the current administration.
Here it comes.
You want the inside scoop on Ken Paxton versus John Cornyn and President Trump's endorsement? President Trump is going to endorse John Cornyn. And he's making a deal with John Thune that if he endorses Cornyn, Thune will get the SAVE Act passed through. Now, the SAVE Act is instrumental to saving America. It's called the Save America Act for a reason, right? But boy, it's a gut punch to think Ken Paxton is going to bow out of the race. This after Ken Paxton tweeted he would step down if they pass the SAVE Act. I've also been told Ken Paxton has been promised a very big position within the Trump administration. What that position is, I don't know yet. Wouldn't it be interesting if Pam Bondi was out and Paxton came in as Attorney General, but could Paxton get confirmed? I know Trump really likes Bondi. All these things are to think about, but I'm here to tell you the endorsement of Cornyn is coming.
Was he washing his hands while he was filming that video? There was like, did you hear that? There was water running in the background.
He was definitely in his kitchen. Maybe the dishwasher was going.
That's a weird thing to do. All right, so Donald Trump tweeted out that we must pass the America Save Act. The Save America Act must be done. Voter ID for all voters. Identification. All voters must show proof of citizenship in order to vote. No mail-in ballots except for illness, disability, military, or travel. No men and women's sports. And then his post transitioned. He initially posted no transgender mutilation surgery for children without the express written approval of their parents. That's an interesting non-MAGA position, I think. And then they went, parents hate that. No transgender mutilation surgery for children, period. The argument was made yesterday that this was an accident, that he didn't actually mean to say that. What say you, Steve Friend?
Oh, I mean, that caveat there strikes me as somebody who's a Democrat from New York City in the 1990s. So I think that's his default setting. And then he had to take corrective action because Donald Trump is still theoretically kind of a populist. But at the same time, if the population, particularly your base, doesn't like John Cornyn, why are you going against them? How many people are you disenfranchising in Texas by making this sort of a deal? And the whole prospect of a deal itself, this is why people hate this government.
Let me throw this out there because I love seeing this in the chat every once in a while. That's a fake post, Kyle. That's not real. That's not what Donald Trump said.
Did he send the signals through the TV to you?
Yeah, he must have. He sent this signal to me through the TV.
Look, this is a party, the Republican Party, of common sense. Forget about conservative, liberal. We're, let's say conservative, but we're really a party of, we need borders, we need fair elections, we don't want men playing in women's sports, we don't want transgender operations without parental consent.
Wait, what did he say?
Ooh. I mean, it was kind of hard to hear under the applause there, but he said without parental consent, and that's definitely a problem for the base.
Wait, he said that they don't want without the express written approval of the parents. They don't. I thought that was fake news. Wasn't that fake news? He actually said that. That's what he actually said, folks. Mm-hmm. Listen, if you think that there's a problem with MAGA, there's no problems with MAGA. Sitting from the outside, it looks like there might be some problems with MAGA, only because MAGA keeps picking people that they like, and then Donald Trump doesn't get that message. I don't know who's telling him that it's not working, but they're not getting it. So luckily, we've got the slop father who's going to come in here and send some slopaganda down your throat. Are you ready to be told? Tell me that you cannot picture. Okay, you ready, Steve? This is what I want you to picture. Kevin Spacey. No, I'm sorry, not Kevin Spacey. Kevin Bacon.
All right, better.
In the ROTC uniform. All is well. Everything has remained calm. All is well. Here it comes. All is well. That's what this clip is called.
And please don't fall for this deliberate op. I hear all these commentators now talking about ops. The ops are mostly coming from the other side. Black pillars, liberal media people, and Democrat strategists trying to fracture the Republican Party over everything. Endorsements, Israel, the Middle East, the economy, tariffs. I see it every day. There's a mutiny going on in the Republican Party, guys. Did you hear? It's from the experts, by the way. They told us it's all falling apart. The MAGA coalition, it's all falling apart, folks. You know who says it? The extremely reliable, and I say that with a heavy dose of sarcasm, possibly the heaviest dose of sarcasm, the Washington Post. There's a mutiny. MAGA is Trump. President fires back at right-wing mutiny over Iran. There is no mutiny, folks. This is all bullshit, doomer, black pillar, liberal media bullshit designed to fracture you before an election, to drive down approval ratings and voter enthusiasm so Republicans lose and Donald Trump can get impeached. That is all this is. Put a period at the end of that sentence. Please do not fall for it. There are varying opinions about how long this war should last, if there should be troops on the ground or not, who should be targeted, what should the goals be. Those are great. I love the fact that this party debates this stuff in our own tent. But don't believe the bullshit that this is some big mutiny. It's like 10 people who are out there ginning up a bunch of bullshit.
So Kevin Bacon, everything is well, all's great. It's more of like, thank you, sir, may I have another, right? Just pure slop coming out of there. And the premise of the former co-deputy director of the FBI, just a bureau guy giving us the straight dope. Is that the MAGA base, their enthusiasm to vote in the upcoming midterm elections will be pushed down by the stories that they are reading in the Washington Post.
That's the premise. What do you assess the accuracy of that underlying premise?
Things are way more gay and retarded than they've ever been.
I don't know what you're talking about, Steve.
The president had a feeling, again, based on fact, that Iran was going to strike the United States, was going to strike.
What does that mean?
He had more than a feeling.
More than a feeling.
Well, look, he was also
It was based
told...
on fact. Listen, Steve, here's the deal, okay? We can't have a War Powers Act because we're not at war, jerk. Let me give you this one. Here's Mike Johnson Smithers. Again, why are things more retarded and gay than they ever have been? Because we have people that are like this out there saying things that people are going like, we're having the moment where like the reboot hits us in the head and there's like the sound of the rebooting or the blue pinwheel of death that used to hit us on Windows systems.
Well, we just had an important series of votes on the House floor. As you know, the War Powers Resolution failed. That is the right result. We are not at war. We have no intention of being at war. The President and the Department of Defense have made this very clear. The Department of War has made it very clear. This is a limited operation. It's an operation that's limited in its scope and duration. It has a very clear mission, and that mission is nearly accomplished by all estimates. We are taking down Iran's ballistic missile capability, its stockpile, and its ability to produce more. They were doing that at a scale and a speed that was more than our regional allies could keep up with, and it was a serious and imminent threat to the United States. We don't need to relitigate all that today.
Listen, we're not going to talk about the facts about why we're doing what we're doing. We have a purpose. It used to be nuclear problems, but now we've sort of run away from that. It used to be that they had a Navy. We wanted to make sure we talked about that. It was short-range ballistic missiles. We're winning on that. The meme goes like this, Steve. Ready? Donald Trump gets elected, changes Department of Defense to Department of War, goes to war, claims it's not war, changes it back to Department of Defense. That's kind of like where we're in this cycle here.
It's totally not a war, even though we've knocked out all of their leadership, all of their missile capabilities, their entire nuclear program, their entire Navy, going for regime change. How dare you call me a stewardess? I'm a flight progress coordinator.
Ooh, I actually like that way better than stewardess. That's pretty good. Okay, look, I know some of you guys that are listening to this were thinking that we were going to have mass deportations. Remember, that's Kristi Noem's claim to fame, is that they shut down the border and then a bunch of people moved themselves out. We were thinking that everybody that came here illegally was meant to not be here anymore. That was kind of what the whole Agenda 47 said. If only I had that on the screen. Hold on. I have it on the screen. Seal the border. Stop the migrant invasion. 2, carry out the largest deportation operation in American history. I didn't imagine that, but listen, just because I didn't imagine it doesn't mean that I don't need to lighten up. Can you lighten up, Stu, Steve? I know you wanted deportations, but you're not going to get it.
Many countries opened up their prisons and dropped them into the United States. Those are the people who are getting out. And we have a lot of heart. They said, you got to lighten up on this. We have a lot of heart for people. They came in illegally, but they're good people, and they're working now on farms, and they're working in luncheonettes and hotels and all. And we're looking to get the criminals out right now, the criminals. And I think it's very important. I mean, every once in a while you see a story, we take somebody, He should be out because they came in illegally. So in theory, they should be. But we're focused on the murderers, the drug dealers, the mentally insane. We have a lot of mentally insane killers. I mean, you can't even talk to them. It'd be nice if you could have a little reason, but you can't even reason. These are seriously ill people. You have
got to leave the farm workers. Meanwhile, CBS News reports the United States economy lost 92,000 jobs in February, marking an unexpected setback for the economy.
Wait, I thought that the jobs were going gangbusters. Or did they revise it down? Like
like every year that they've done. What do they say? Like 24 out of the last 25 months, they revise it down. Now we're at 25 out of the last 26. You got to make it.
Look, I love how he said, theoretically, all of the illegal aliens should have to go. But we need people to pick the crops.
Just lighten up. We need slaves, guys. We need farm jobs. These people are coming here. They're good people. They came here illegally and broke the law. They stole someone's identity so they could get a job. They jacked up some dude's credit, so now he can't afford to buy a house because his credit's all screwy. But they mean well. They're hardworking. They're not the criminal psychos, the people with the mental illness. You can't even reason with these mental illness psychos. We're trying to get rid of those people. What the hell are we doing? February marks the third time in the last 5 months that the jobs market has shown losses. The U.S. market futures are declining at the jobs report. This is a surprise miss, along with another big spike in crude oil, which is because of a widening, definitely not a war in Iran. That's what the words say, war in Iran. Can't call it that because we don't have a war. Mike Johnson just told us. There's also been a drop of hiring in the healthcare sector, which has recently been a source of employment gains. It was dragged down in February. That sector said 28,000 jobs, what the department later said was attributed to recent striking activity of nurses in California.
But if we allow them to do meatball surgery on the kiddos with parental consent, then we could have a spike next month in the medical field.
This all checks out. All that makes perfect sense to me. I think we're on board with what we needed to say. I think we've said most of what needs to be said. We're going to go back to the original statement that we started the program off with, Steve, which was FBI agents aren't cops, and it's part of the training that they don't get. And so I brought you something that you've never seen because you're too young and I'm too young. And some of the people in this audience are not too young. And maybe you also got trained on this. This is my favorite video that I accidentally found. This is why I want to go back in time. I just want to do a reboot. I want to go back to the 90s or the 80s would be fine. Because back in the day, the threat wasn't nearly as serious, but it was also way more serious. This is the funniest police training video. I hope they add this to the FBI Academy. So for those of you that are in the, I guess it's now the Reagan building on what used to be the 7th floor and now is whatever floor of the Reagan building, if you're an FBI executive, add this to the training curriculum. Knife attacks are legit, and especially they're legit in Washington, D.C.
Here's my license. Why don't you come get it? Drop the knife. Fuck you. I said, drop the knife. Boom.
Surviving Edged Weapons, 1988. The wildest police training video ever made.
Things go from bad to horrible real quick. Right away, you're in deep shit.
Come for the knife safety?
Butterfly knife, throwing darts hidden up his sleeve.
Stay for the mustaches.
What the fuck you want?
A baseball cap with razor blades.
Hello? Drop the knife!
A butane lighter holder, fish hooks hidden in earrings. The Mexican sacatripe. This bear claw necklace.
Grade A. 4 bear claw necklaces out of 8.
A man turns around and punches me in the head. The fight's on. If he cuts me, the fight's on. If I'm shot, the fight is on. I'm not losing no fight to no scumbag out there.
Here's my license. Why don't you come?
The single best scene is somebody punches through their own window with a knife to be able to stab a cop on their porch. And the guy's like, ah, and he hits him in the hand. The Mexican sacatribe. I don't know what that is, but somebody put that in the comments. Help me find a sacatribe.
That reminds me of the firearms training, the FAT system with the nice narrator voiceover would be like, you and your partner are going to a scene.
You've entered a warehouse. There's a woman back there who's already incapacitated the security guard with a ninja kick to the dick. What's your next move? Action.
Like that thing?
Yeah. And essentially they say like, and action, because it's complete theater.
That's right. And then they say index.
Index, not index, index.
Share that one more time so people know. When I said that to a military guy the other day, they fell out laughing.
So, in the military, when they want to end an exercise, like some sort of a role player's drill they're doing, they don't say end exercise, they say end X. But because the FBI is cosplay military and somebody probably heard it one time and misheard it, and they said, well, end X isn't a word, so they probably meant index.
Index.
The FBI stops all of its scenarios by saying index.
That's right. Well, and that's a real scenario that I'm giving away about the FBI Academy on their very expensive, like $1 million training system. You're standing in essentially a theater room with like a fake gun and a holster, and they legitimately have you like enter a warehouse with your partner, and then like the partner's on the screen, and like the partner runs forward and gets kicked like right in the nuts and then right in the face by some karate chick who's unarmed, and then she's like, now I'm coming for you, copper, or whatever weird thing she says, and you're like, nope, bap, and you just drop her right there, and then they go, okay, was that justified? And you're like, yeah, but I probably could beat her up. The fact that she kicked a grown man who has a pot belly and a mustache in the nuts and incapacitated him is not very realistic. It's a funny training scenario, though.
The way that I passed my FAT scenario was a convenience store robbery. And I'd already been admonished that you're not the police anymore. So when the guy pulls out a gun and points it at the clerk's head and robs him, I just stood there and remained a good witness.
That's outstanding. Well done. I would have gone for headshots.
I did it in the bank scenario, and I failed.
You went for headshots in the bank scenario?
I took deadly force in the bank scenario in Hogan's Alley, and they said that's a fail. And I looked around like, are you talking to me? Or are you talking to my partner who refused to sit down because he was so amped up believing that ninjas were going to come out of the ceilings that he was combat ineffective? No,
my partner was in the female lawsuit that got kicked out of the academy. Her name was Elena Parra. She's now a Secret Service agent. Elena Parra is 4'9". That's maybe generous. She might be 4'8", but she's like 4'9". And when someone pulled a gun in the bowling alley, no, not the bowling alley. What is it? The pool hall?
Pool hall.
And went to rob the pool hall. She was sitting on the couch with me, and she's so small, she jumped onto the couch where her feet were on the cushions. She was standing up, and she was only about 6 inches taller than me while I was sitting down. And the instructors didn't even notice that she jumped up, pulled her gun, looked down, saw me not jump up. She holstered her gun and sat back down, and nothing happened to her. She was completely okay. She moved on from the scenario after doing like a midget jump, draw, point, reholster, and sit back down drill. God, it's so silly. Anyway, I'm just showing what that's going to look like. This picture, by the way, is from April 2025 when Patel was having them do that as part of whatever the secure Washington, D.C. game is. And we're going to see more of that. And apparently we're going to see what happens when you get a guy who wants to fight me, bro, becomes Homeland Security. Maybe the videos will be funnier. I hope the videos that we spend the $250 million on from Mark Wayne Mullin will be better. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he'll get some bids in for those that says advertisements.
As long as you bid them out, it's okay. All right, yeah. Steve, tell people what you have coming up on the AMRAD podcast, then I'll play some millennial thing to make us laugh.
Well, the American Radicals podcast, weekdays, every weekday, noontime, rumble.com, AMRAD pod, also YouTube. And please go check out Spotify. Today I'm going to be breaking down how the State of the Union was kind of a pep rally, and the team's got to perform. They got 3 opportunities. It's going to be on de-weaponization of the government, putting actual government gangsters in handcuffs and mass deportations, and they got a limited runway. Otherwise, I'm not watching the game. I'm just going to turn on some wrestling.
That's probably the right answer. If you want to turn on wrestling, then you can avoid having your kids act like complete buffoons and weirdos that nobody knows what to do with. And here, I guess, is an impression from one of my more preferred comedians. What's this guy's name? He does the Trump impressions. Shane Gillis.
Shane Gillis.
Yeah, here he is trying to talk to a Gen Zer. This is his impression of millennials trying to interact with the generation below us. By the way, there's a major difference between being Gen X and even like the older millennial groups, and I'm in that category. I guess technically I'm a millennial by like a few months.
Graybeard millennials.
Graybeard millennial, sure. I'm not even as gray as I was, but I will be more again. We grew up analog, so we grew up without texting, and we grew up talking to human beings and stuff like that. And then there's like this like lower millennial / Gen Z group that have never talked to another human being, and so they don't know how to do it. And so it looks something like this.
Fuck. What's up, Jared?
What's up?
Come on, man. You gotta have something, conversation-wise, when you come in here like this.
How have you guys
been? You mean how have you been? We're good.
I like blacked out.
Yeah, I've never heard one word he's ever said.
How many conversations have you had that have like that in real life? Because I've got about a dozen in the last year.
Every time I had to interview somebody who was a member of Gen Z, it was always a problem.
I like when they trail off and they don't actually say anything. I don't know what to do with them other than yell at them. That's like my dad's move, but I think it's still effective. It works for my kids, so maybe I'll just yell at strangers. Anyway, Steve, thanks for joining me. Are we screwed?
It's fake and gay, but at the very least, our kids are all going to be warlords because we're training them up right how to do like leg drops and tombstone pile drivers.
The Iron Sheik. Put that in your kid's reservoir, in his resume too. He needs to learn that one. All right, bud. Thanks for joining me today. That's uplifting. All right. Our kids are going to be warlords. Kids or your grandkids should be warlords. Teach them how to be not whatever that kid was on the screen. Thanks for joining us for the program. We really appreciate all of you guys. Make sure you're hitting a like on the video if you're watching. If you haven't done that already, follow us over on Spotify, KyleSeraphinshow.com. I need a good weekend. I really do. I'm going to be putting out some content over at Tackleberry, which will help me stay sane. If you guys have not been upping your firearms game, we talked about the 4 and or maybe the 5 Fs last week with Steve Friend. So just remember those. And they start off with faith and then family, fitness, and firearms training, and maybe farming somewhere in the mix. Guys, let me know what order those fit in your life too in a comment. Thanks for being part of the show. We'll talk to you guys after the weekend. Have a good one. God bless you.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.